Welcome to Foundation. Today we're talking to Tony Fadell, who is the godfather of the Ipod and is now the founder and CEO of one of the coolest companies in Silicon Valley, Nest. So I wanted to start back a little bit first before we get into the Nest stuff. It's always fascinating, I find, that you've had an amazing career all the way, actually let's get started there. You actually were an entrepreneur back in college, right? You were studying...
Actually, before that, actually in high school.
In high school?
So high school, a guy and I, it was a thing, Apple II mail order. So he said, hey, I'm doing this thing, you want to join me? And so literally in his parents' basement. So we were making software and selling hardware for Apple II. It was pretty cool.
Did you study CS or what's your background?
CE, so a combination, University of Michigan, go blue. Literally a combination of CS and EE, so computer engineering.
Do you find that being an entrepreneur was just always in your DNA? Was it something that you knew that you wanted to be, or?
Well, my real first venture was I was selling, I had an egg route. So in second and third grade, my brother and I, with a little blue wagon, we'd get farm fresh eggs from the farmer, and then we would go door to door and selling them. And we did this for a year and a half.
That's awesome.
We didn't really know how to make change, so it was a really profitable business.
I want to talk about, before we get into the Apple stuff, about what's going on in the industry right now with, we see Kickstarter over the last couple of years has just been insane.
Yeah.
So many different hardware startups. What's your take on this? Like Kickstarter, and especially like a new entrepreneur getting into hardware?
Well, I think Kickstarter is really great to show the wealth of ideas and to show that there might be market traction for a certain idea. But Kickstarter, when you look at a Kickstarter program, you're buying something for maybe $129 or $79 or $199. That you're making a commitment that you're going to give them that piece of equipment or whatever it is for that money. The problem is with most hardware projects is you don't really make money until the third version of anything you do. The first two versions, you're figuring it out, you're lucky if you break even, and you've invested maybe $2 to $5 million for each rep. So literally by the time you make money, you need to have about 7 to 10 million, on a typical kind of product. Mm-hmm. $10 million invested, and then the people pay on top of that. So I don't understand how a lot of these guys can go and think they can get to market with something that's actually good enough quality with just getting people to pay for just above the cost of goods. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of these things being around for the second version and the third version. I think they all do it, and they do it once, and then they go, oh shit, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And they kind of understand that they don't have enough capital to make it to the next level. Because you really need, atoms and bits are totally, totally different. And you just have to have a lot of discipline, because if you screw up one thing, you can spend a lot of money really fast and have nothing to show for it. So I think Kickstarter is great for getting an audience and showing that you should be able to get capital for your idea. Because most times people are like, does people want to buy this? And so that's great. But I think you need real funding and a real team to be able to deliver year after year those kinds of products.
Where's the biggest breakdown in your mind? Like I've heard from multiple people that in order to really manufacture properly in China, you actually have to have boots on the ground there.
Yeah, we have a team there as well. Because at the end of the day, they are a partner of yours, but their job is to also make money, right? And so you never know what's going on in China. You don't know how many times they double count things, they double charge. And this even happened during the days of Apple and all these other things. You just don't know. They have to make money. And they're making money in all kinds of different ways. They could be cutting corners. And I'm not kidding. And we have trusted partners, but at the end of the day, not everything goes the way you think it does. And you need to have eyes there watching over it, because it's your product quality and your brand that goes out the door, not theirs.
Yeah, it seems that there's a lot of people that I've met in the hardware space, when it's one or two guys getting together to create something, they take a schematic and they ship it off and they just expect everything to go to plan.
You can't throw it over the wall. There's no throwing it over the wall and it just comes back. A lot of times, you have to go and re-engineer the product to make it manufacturable. You have to understand what the product parts cost, and then you're like, oh yeah, it should be cheap because so-and-so can do it for blah, blah, blah in a smartphone or this world, and that's how much they pay when they see the iFixit or some of these some of these analyst teardowns. The problem is when you're buying tens of something, they're going to charge you a ton of money for each part, each little resistor and everything. So, and it's going to be really hard to get manufacturers, good ones, to line up to help you because they want to see millions of orders.
Sure.
And if not, they're like, forget it, go on down the road. And you're going to get even less quality talent.
Do you see any of that changing? I mean, obviously there's certain things like assembly now that's starting to happen in the United States with both Apple and Google assembling different things here, but do you actually see any of the manufacturing coming here domestically?
I see some assembly, and it's really it's kind of post-configuration, kind of like what Dell did back in the 90s and the 80s, where you configure a PC.
Yeah.
All the components came, and then you kind of bolt them together.
Cards, yeah.
Exactly. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of the stuff here. You're not seeing true manufacturing. In Brazil, actually, with contract manufacturing, if you send your product into Brazil, and you didn't touch it at all, it's 100% tariff. So literally, if you buy something here for $300, there it's $600. Because they just have the tariff to try to incentivize people to move factories there. But what's really going on in Brazil is everything's basically assembled in parts in China, and then it's kind of configured in Brazil so you can cut out most of the tariff. So just so they can employ people. So these things happen around the world, and it's not real true manufacturing because you have to worry about the entire supply chain. Where do the bits of rubber come from that get molded, then get put into the assembly? Where do the bits of plastic come from and into the mold, and then assembled, and then configured and tested and shipped? So the supply chain got moved a long, long time ago to really Korea, then Taiwan, and then China. And it was all doing when the whole PC revolution happened. Dell and HP were the first ones to really outsource stuff. That's when they started just buying laptops from anybody and just putting their logos on it, right? That's when the whole supply chain moved. And then Apple had to follow it over time because the supply chain and the trained workers weren't here anymore. So it's going to be a long time before you start with assembly, configuration first. Right. Then you get assembly, and then you get supply chain to come back. So hopefully it'll come back one day, but I don't know when.
Crazy. I wanted to touch real briefly on, you're called one of the founding fathers of the Ipod. I'd love to hear that, quick little story about the very origins of that. Like how did that actually device come into being?
Well, I got a call in 2001, in January 2001, and it was basically, hey, could you come and consult for us here at Apple? And I had been doing, personal PDAs or whatever for a decade already. And so I was like, wonder what they're calling me about. I had a startup at the time, and it was the 2000, fallout, and it was hard to raise any money at that point. It was a hardware software startup doing MP3 players, but those kind of hard drive based ones that in the racks for stereos. And so they called me up and they said, and I thought it was going to be for PDA. And they said, no, we have this thing called iTunes, and it's going really well. It's combined with a Mac, and you burn CDs, you make custom CDs. We're trying to make MP3 players, work with it. The ones that were out at the time.
The Diamond Rio.
And they were like, these things are just crazy. They're hard to use, and we think Apple can put a spin on it. Go away, tell us what you think we can do, and then bring it back. And so 6-7 weeks later, I came back with a styrofoam model. We didn't have 3D printers at the time. Styrofoam model, I weighted it, with fishing weights, and I put some, graphics on it, and then it created a deck and a system architecture and all the different pieces of the puzzle, how much it could cost and how long it could take.
And this was hard drive based?
And there were 3 different options that I showed. I showed different ones with flash and DRAM and hard drive, all different kinds of memory, all different kinds of batteries and things of that nature, but we all knew which was the right one. You showed kind of the 2 concepts that were shit, and then you showed the right one at the end. And so you just show that you've done all your homework. And 6 weeks later, I literally pitched that presentation and that model to Steve with a few other people around from Apple, and it was green-lighted basically in that meeting. Now, of course, I had worked at other big companies before, so I knew when you green light it meant, well, let's go research this some more, let's go see what happens. But literally, Steve was so gung-ho about it and gave us the resources necessary in terms of money, and I went and built the team. 7 months later, shipped the first iPod, and then 18 generations later.
Crazy.
So it was an absolute crazy, crazy time. And I look back and I go, how did we get that done in that period of time? But
you said as a contractor, though, so were you still a contractor?
I was a contractor for the first 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then in April, I became a full-time employee.
I see. Now,
so from February, March was when I was a contractor.
Who did the initial design there? Was that Ivan influenced, or was that your design?
So the original. So what happened was, because it was so fast, what happened? I made that styrofoam model and kind of mocked it up, and then, and literally because it was like a sandwich. So there was a hard drive, a battery, or it was a battery, a hard drive, and then the PCB and that. So we didn't have any time. So it was like literally skin this thing. So he's like, okay, and then he skinned it with the plastics and the metal.
Last Apple question before we move on. I'm just curious about, I'm sure you get this asked all the time, about Steve Jobs being a mentor of yours. If you had to take, both the good and the bad from your experience with him, I don't know if there was bad, I'm just saying that, and distill it down into 2 or 3 things, like takeaways from your experience with Jobs, and share those with the other CEOs and entrepreneurs here, what would those things be?
Well, what did I learn? What did I really learn?
What did you learn?
I learned the power of no. No is really, really important. Entrepreneurs always are told to say yes, yes, more, more. Yes, of course I'll grow faster. But to help you focus, to really understand what you're doing, you have to say no a lot. And when you say no a lot, that narrows in exactly what you need to do. And you know when you're successful or not, because you focus solely on this one thing or these 2 things. When you say yes a lot to everything, you can get distracted. So when this thing's not going right, I'm going to go focus on this thing for a while. And then I move to this one. And then you go, oh yeah, I don't need to do those now. I'm going to work on this. When you say no to a lot of things, you have to get the one thing you're doing really right, because that's it. And so no was a really, really big influence. He's like, we're as good as the things we say yes to, as well as we say no to.
Do you think that is reflected, I would assume, in just how simple your products are today? Just keeping them streamlined?
Yeah, no means, whether it's projects or user interface or buttons or colors or, yeah, absolutely. The power of just simplification. Just saying, yeah, maybe we'll get around that to another day, but right now we're just focusing on this. So absolutely, that's how you get that, Occam's razor, so to speak. Just enough.
Cool. So give us an update on the thermostat. I'm curious, like power saved, like any insights that you have in collecting all of this data. I'm assuming, a lot of data is coming back to you.
Right. So, right now, Nest Learning Thermostat's only been on the market for 2 years. Just came up on its birthday. We've made 2 generations. When we combine all of the savings that we've seen from just, we're in less than 1% of homes in a lot less than 1% of homes in North America. We've already saved 1 terawatt or 1 billion kilowatt hours of energy with those devices. And so for us, we're just astounded by what we can do by trimming the waste, and people are still staying comfortable. It's not like they're living in caves or whatever, putting on parkas all the time or whatever, or sweating. They're literally still comfortable. So there's so much waste that we can trim back. And so for us, a billion kilowatt hours, that's equivalent to a weekday in the U.S. during the day, 15 minutes, just the entire U.S. energy consumption for 15 minutes. And we did that in about 20 months. So could you imagine what we do with 5% of households or 10% of households? We're worrying about all this extra generation capability and all the renewables that we can put on the roofs and getting enough wind power and all these other things. Geez, we have power plants sitting there. We're just wasting the power every day. How many megawatts can we generate a day if we were all to just use our things that we have around us that use energy efficiently and allow the computers to take it over, as opposed to us having to behaviorally change it every day? Oh, I'm going to change it, I'm going to shift it. Let the computers, we understand, you guys understand this, algorithms can work really, really well when when they have the right sensor technology and the right user interface. And so that's where we're getting it now. So we've been really, really pleased to see this kind of result.
How do you work with the local like power providers? Like, we were having these issues in California just a few years ago.
Yeah, brownouts.
Yeah, brownouts. Like, are you doing work with them directly?
Well, it's a great question. So when we started the company, we never thought that we were going to be just a thermostat company. We always thought of ourselves as an experience company and an experience with energy, right? So what happens with energy when you put a thermostat on your wall and then you replace it 12 or 15 years later? So it's not just about turning it up or down and staying comfortable. It's like, how much can I save? But how much could I get paid if I use this thing properly? Literally $10 billion a year are spent by utility companies to incentivize you to do the right thing. You don't almost never see that money, right? Sometimes it comes in the form of a rebate or you get a free, LED bulb or something like that. But literally $10 billion are spent. So what we've done is we decided, let's unlock those funds and get them back into your pocket. So if you use Nest properly, you'll actually get, in some states, you'll actually get paid for it. So in the case of what we call Rush Hour Rewards, this is a program that we run with multiple utilities. We have tens of thousands of people on it. And literally, during peak days in the summer, everyone turns on their air conditioning at once. And that causes a tremendous load on the grid. 10% of generation capability, electricity generation capability in the US runs idle all year except for 10 to 15 days a year when it's really hot, when everybody turns on their air conditioning at once. So you have to pay for all of that in your bills. So what we decided was, wait a second, what if we were able to trim those spikes of air conditioning, because we control the air conditioning, what if we could trim those and spread them out? Like an algorithm does, just spread them out and just have everybody kind of modulating, turning on and off at different times, just making sure they all turn on at the same time. Maybe you'll just, and worst case, 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit is all you'll ever feel in your home. That's the only difference. And through that, we can shift 50 to 60% of the load off of that time, which the utilities love. They will pay you to opt into this program, and you don't have to do anything. The computer controls it. The Nest thermostat does it for you. So you can get paid $4 to $8 per event. So in some customers are getting $60 to $80 per summer per thermostat for opting into the program. So when did you think that you could actually make money by using something properly and you don't have any other comfort issues? Literally a degree and a half. Nobody ever experienced it. So these are the kind of things that when you have a connected product and you think about the user interface and making really great algorithms so you don't feel the difference. Those are the kind of things that are really very powerful, and there's lots of money that will be paid for those kinds of services because you contribute that money to the utilities to give back to yourselves if you do something right. So these are the kind of groundbreaking things we can do, and we're really excited about what more we can do next year and the year after.
I'm curious though, when you set up to create the company and work on the thermostat, was this something that was in your original thesis, or was it something that you kind of discovered later on? Or did you start by just, some entrepreneurs are run and gun, I want to make a sexy thermostat, and they just go try and build something? No,
this was always the plan. When we were doing our Series A, because when we were doing our Series A, and this was in 2010, we went to certain green venture firms, right? And so they were always asking, are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? Because they understood how important this was. And it was always part of the original vision. Now, obviously, we weren't pitching that as a business because we were tiny little guys, and we said, let's just get a thermostat right. But we said, here's what the power of connectivity can do. If we get this right, and people really like our brand, maybe they'll trust us to do these kinds of services for them. And now we're finding really, really great traction with utilities because they have a power crunch. They're turning off all kinds of coal plants now. They have under generation, they don't have enough generation to meet the peaks. So they're going to have to pay you to save energy during those times. So again, this was always part of the vision. Always part of the vision.
What was the ramp up time for that vision as you're going from I have an idea to actually forming the corporation and putting the team together? How much time did you spend doing the due diligence and research behind the scenes before actually funding and launching the company?
So I seed funded it myself. And then I think we did about 4 or 5 months worth. Now you have to think about the time when I was building my house and going through all that. So for 2 years I was thinking about the problem and kind of dissecting it. But we really got into real research, market research, technology research, all that stuff for about 4 to 5 months before I was like, okay, it seems like we got something here. We could have a winner. against the incumbents. And then from there, then we put together a plan over the next, and real mock-ups and prototypes over the next 5 months. And then we kind of went out at that point. And then a year and a half later, we shipped.
Let's talk about the Nest Protect. How does that play with the thermostat? How does that work if you have both devices? Do they talk to each other yet? Like, what's the thinking there?
Well, we always knew that we wanted to build a network of things in the home. Each product itself should stand alone, right? So the thermostat should stand alone, and it should be, work really well, and it does what it does. Nest Protect, our smoke and CO alarm, it should stand alone and work really, really well. But if they come together, they should work together in very interesting ways. And so what we've done, and it should do it automatically. So what we did was, when you get a CO event, a carbon monoxide alarm, well, the number one cause of carbon monoxide leaks in a home is a faulty furnace. So if you have a Nest thermostat, well, what would it make sense to do? Turn off your furnace. So if you get a CO event, we'll turn off your furnace. Makes sense, right? And then we'll send you a message, tell you what we did and all that stuff, and we'll tell you what to do in the case of a CO event. But that is just one of those really basic things that seems to make total sense. And you don't have to do anything special. Just put those two things in your account and we'll do it automatically. Another thing they do is, sometimes we have a feature on our thermostat called Auto Away. So when you don't walk in front of it very often, it turns itself down to save energy. It basically says, hey, I'm not home. You're not home, so turn down. You don't have to turn it down when you go. It should turn itself down. Duh. So 95% of the time, thermostats are very well placed so that you're walking past them usually once every 2-3 hours. Like you have to go to the bathroom, go to the kitchen, whatever, you're going around. So you walk in front of it. But 5% of homes, they're not placed well. People hid them away or they're tucked away somewhere. So what happens is we have motion sensors inside of the Nest Protect. So if Nest Protect sees you, and it sees you have a thermostat, it says, hey, I saw somebody here. So it continues to extend the range of the occupancy sensing to make sure it doesn't go into auto away, the thermostat doesn't go into auto away. So these are very basic things. You don't have to do anything special as a customer, but that's how they play together, and that's how they become more powerful. Stand alone really well. Each of them stand on their own 2 feet. And then they come together and get more powerful. You look at a lot of other systems out there, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. You got to buy everything, and then they all work together. We don't think that makes sense.
They don't normally all work together.
And they don't work together. They don't work standalone nor together.
Yeah.
So we try to blend them and do it really simply. We're not trying to be the one button where you press one button and your lights go down and your shades go down and your temperature goes up and the TV comes on. We think that's kind of geek land. That's not a typical home. That's not, people asked us, why do you even have a display? Why do you even have a thermostat? You should just control it all by the phone when I come home and I go away. It should just do it. And I'm like, are you married? And they go, no. I said, do you know kids live in a house? Oh, I'm like, so sometimes people have to use it and they don't have a smartphone. Or, you can't just think that there's only one person in the house. There's literally a whole set of people that come in, and especially as you get older, there's more people. You don't even control your house when you get older.
Or the kids know how to use it, and the adults don't know how to use it.
Yeah, exactly. The kids know how to use it. So these are the kind of things that you have to consider when you're saying, do I want a whole connected home?
Yeah.
What does that mean? And you have to consider the others in it, because they're usually want something very different than what you want. Yeah. We might want that one button that does everything.
Sure.
But if you talk to your wife, she'll want a one button too, but it does something totally different. And you talk to the kids, they want a different button. So these home automation panaceas, I don't believe them. I've lived in them. I have 2 houses like that. I put everything possible into them. They're my research labs. And I learned very quickly, you got to keep it incredibly simple and just do a couple of things really right. And everything else is, that's kind of, I'm a geek, so it's in my geekdom area. So.
Yeah, I'm curious, as a geek, there's been talk about the wired home and refrigerators talking to other components and dishwashers and coffee makers. Obviously, You're not going to reveal any future product plans here. It's in your Apple DNA. But what do you keep building? Do you keep expanding out from here? Do you see is there potential for other devices from you guys in the future?
Well, look, right now we're making our second device and we're going into other countries, right? We're already selling Nest Protect in the UK. So for us, really, it's all about getting our products that we have today out to the other customers that actually want it. Because they're network connected, we actually see that Nest thermostats are in 96 countries where we or our partners don't ship or sell product. 96 countries.
Crazy.
And we're not talking about onesie, twosie. We're talking hundreds, and in some cases, tens of thousands.
You're talking eBay then? How are people
Yeah,
getting
they go to eBay and they buy it, the gray market on eBay, or they come here and then they bring it to their home country. It reminds me totally of what would happen in the iPod days when iPods weren't available worldwide, or iPhones. People would come here and they would find a way to get it back to their home country. And so to us, this is just phenomenal, right? So we need to serve those markets with the products we've got. And we're just glad we're getting to the UK. And I can't believe we already have energy services with rush hour rewards and seasonal savings. Less than 2 years in, we turned on that service. Mm-hmm. We got our second product or business, our Nest Protect's already going. And we've crossed the pond into the UK and hopefully other countries very soon. So we've only been on the market 2 years. We already have a brand that people are starting to understand and see. So, I'm kind of like, we're treading water. We're moving as fast as we can. New products, one day I hope. One day I hope.
Yeah. And in building these products, I would imagine, you're dealing with like heating and cooling and then also smoke. And these are, if you get these wrong, you can really do some damage. What's the QA process like for you guys around these products?
Well, you have to remember, it's not like the iPod because iPod's different, but the iPhone was if you couldn't dial 911, right, there's a problem, mm-hmm. right? So you have to go through very similar QA process. So you have to have rigor in everything you do. So we have a great QA team. We call it integration engineering because QA is kind of not, we call it because it's engineers. If you do QA correctly, you have engineers doing quality assurance, and they're building tools and real methodical tests and making sure you're testing all the different, various scenarios. So we don't just think of people as pressing buttons. We need computers to do it for us because they're so complicated. But in the case of Nest Protect, we've had to go to 3 different certification bodies, and we've had to put our product in front of them and work with them for over a year to work within the regulations to be able to ship it. And 4, California also has one, 4 different regulation bodies, and get them to say that this is going to be a credible product that we can put on the market that can actually protect people, right? So while we have to do our typical QA, we have to actually go through yet another body to certify it and make sure it's right. And so, like you said, this is life or death matter. Cooling and heating is also that way as well because of medical issues.
I grew up in the desert and definitely
older people, younger people could die of heat exhaustion if you don't get it right. So these are the kind of things that, and that's why we also have our installation network. We have 13,000 installers so that if we have anything, most people install all the products themselves. What we have is if customer support ever somebody has an issue, we roll a truck. Boom, they're out there and they're making sure we know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So it's not for an installation, it's to make sure a customer's supported. So these are the kind of things that you have to build when that most people don't understand when they see the products that we have to make sure that they're going to be high quality and they're going to be well serviced and people can trust your brand around it.
Do you have to do penetration testing as well because these are connected to the internet, hackers could potentially get access to?
Yeah, we have a full white hat team inside of our organization now. Some crazy Russians in there, great guys, who go in and they try every which way to get at us. Now we have to do a little bit more to make sure the NSA doesn't get inside. But but literally, no, we're really we've won a couple of hackathons where people couldn't hack us but hacked our competition or other like devices. So at this point, knock on wood, we're doing the best we can. We need to do more. You can never do enough, but I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Excellent.
So far.
So moving away from Nest for a second, Wikipedia lists you as an angel investor, although you really don't go out public about your investments. I'm just curious what traits you look for in an investment or an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've done 70 some odd investments.
Really?
Yeah, I don't talk about
idea.
them. I don't.
Insane.
Yeah. I don't really talk about them too much because it's about them. It's not about me, and so I want to be helpful and mentor and help and see how, because it's fun. It's fun to look through all of your eyes at what you're passionate about, because that's the way I learn. Right? The way I learn and be cutting edge is through other people, because I can't learn everything.
How do you have the time to meet with all these entrepreneurs? 70 is a
Well, that's
huge
been over
portfolio.
many years. It's not like all happened this year. That's your professional job every day. For me, it's that's been it's kind of my intellectual curiosity, right?
Yeah.
People call me and say, "Could you help?" Can whatever, and so they make it really easy for me.
Do you stick with hardware, or what do you?
No, absolutely not. No, I stick with technology. I stick with the things that are going to be groundbreaking technologies that most people won't fund. The stuff that is dramatically different. I won't do execution plays. I won't do things that are like, oh, we got this neat consumer-y thing that just doesn't have enough differentiation. I like the deep technical stuff where there's great minds working on something that I can see that if they hit it right, a whole class of things can be disrupted, right? It could be algorithms, it could be chips, it could be communications protocols, stuff that you really need to be very technical to know how to evaluate. And so that's what I really like.
Like
and
the big moonshot projects, like
the bigger moonshot stuff,
Yeah.
stuff that really gets me out of my element every day, that gets my juices flowing to understand where Nest could be in 10 years from now, because I can see these technologies. So that's really where what I'm looking from a technical side. On the people side, it's just, how did you find this idea? Like, typically, if they came from their hobby or something they were passionate about doing, if they're like, oh, well, I looked at this market and it's a really big market, and then I found this slice of uncovered territory, and here's this crack, and I don't like those kind.
Yeah.
That's usually, again, an execution play. There's like, okay, they've kind of contrived a scenario where they think they'll be successful and they found a vein of gold to mine. No, I look at the other way. They found some interesting new way of looking at technology or applying it. So that's really, 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 really cool for me.
Speaking of the vein of gold, I'm curious your take on Bitcoin. Are you following any of that stuff?
I see Bitcoin. I haven't purchased any, I guess you could say, or converted any.
Have you evaluated the technology at all, or?
I think the technology is really cool. Just the way the whole network works, and it's all open source and fully transparent. So it's really cool. I don't understand really enough about it to know how to play it, I guess you could say, in terms of an investment, because it seems kind of like, again, an execution play. I'd love to see a really good Bitcoin miner that, and go invest in that, I guess, because it could bring a lot of rewards, because it truly is mining, right? So, but I haven't seen any cool technology that isn't just massive scale systems and, to apply to it. So it doesn't seem scalable to mine for Bitcoin, to, mine faster than anyone else.
I'm curious, like, you've pretty much, with the name Nest, you've chosen the home as being like a focal point for some of the stuff that you're building. Are there any other markets that you look at and you say that they're kind of ripe for disruption, or they're just like the incumbents are super old school and you think they could be disrupted?
I think auto space can be totally disrupted. You see what Elon's doing, right? And he's doing a great job with Tesla, but that's at the high end. I'm just looking at all the componentry inside the automobile. Who's going to be the Intel of engines? Right? Because these are all going to be basically computers, right? There's going to be power systems. There's all kind, not just information systems, but everything's going to turn electronic. So the whole world of Silicon Valley can be reapplied to these systems. Everything, algorithms in every single brake system, and to me, I think there's going to be a lot around those areas, and it's going to become more componentized than it ever has been before. Because we can reapply the learnings and systems-oriented technology that we have here. So I look at the autos, and if I wasn't doing home, I would probably be doing something in the auto, like the auto space. And as we know, Google was the first one to really disrupt the space with a self-driving car, right? I was on stage at the North American Auto Show last year, 2 years ago, something like that, and I was sitting in front of all of these auto executives going, I can't believe Silicon Valley and Google beat you, totally waxed you when you guys should be building self-driving cars. Stop trying to replicate Silicon Valley, making MP3 players in cars and infotainment systems that are like 5 years too old. The modern stuff is already in our pockets. You should be working with us You guys should be worried about safety and driving assisted systems. Work on that stuff, because that's not what we're doing. And well, let's work together and getting the media and all the, you should work on, we'll work on driver distractions, you work on driver safety. And I got a lot of kind of cheers from a bunch of from the crowd for it. But yeah, literally, I think, you know, auto is the way to go.
Any thoughts on wearables?
You know, wearables. I did wearables in 2006, 2007 with the Nike, or 2005, with the Nike plus Ipod program. So we had sensors in the shoes, and Nike made all kinds of shoes and all that stuff. So I got to see a lot of that, and got to live it, right, and ship it. The problem is the sensors haven't gotten any better. The sensors really haven't gotten that much better. And what we had was a problem with repeated accuracy. Repeated accuracy. We found so many people said, I went out for the same exact run yesterday, the day after, and I get plus or minus 20%. And so people don't believe the systems. And so I haven't seen any other system that actually has gotten better than that. And so I'm kind of more of a, you know, from a wearable sensors thing, it's been really tough to see. Now, unless you choose to strap it on your ear and you make it really uncomfortable, you can make the sensors work.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to make it kind of very convenient and effective. You know, it's kind of all relative. If you just care about, oh, did I do enough steps today? Sure. If you really want to do real health monitoring and that kind of stuff, pretty difficult.
Yeah. Awesome. Can we get a round of applause for Tony Fadell?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.